there, this is Tata bringing you the It's Wrestling Time post show. And for tonight, I will be reviewing both AEW Rampage and Friday Night Smackdown. Let's kick things off with tonight's AEW Rampage. So, tonight's Rampage opened up with Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita, I mean. And this is a really good match. Like, Takeshita does not disappoint. He's super talented. And I honestly would not be surprised if he becomes champion in the future. He definitely has a bright future ahead of him in AEW, that's for sure. But it was a really great match to kick off Rampage. And he's only, let me see, he's still really young too. He's only 27. So yeah, he definitely has a bright future ahead of him. All right. So one of my first spots in this match was when Jon Moxley, he extended his hand to Konosuke. And Konosuke was going to grab it, but then he flipped off to Konosuke and he slapped Konosuke. And then Konosuke threw it right back. He slapped Jon Moxley. Now, Jon Moxley got busted open during this match. I think was when he got thrown into the barricade and then Konosuke gave him a boot. I think that's when it happened. That DDT to Moxley on the ring apron looked sick. But one of the things that I like about this is that Konosuke did not give up. Moxley threw everything at him and he was not giving up. It took a lot. It took a lot for Konosuke to go down. And the crowd was chanting for Takeshita. So, like I said, he's an amazing talent. I'm so glad AEW signed him. He did the frog slash to Jon Moxley, but that wasn't enough. That double underhook followed by the jumping knee combo was actually pretty cool. But of course, Jon Moxley is victorious in this. It was a really good match. I honestly would not mind seeing a rematch between the two of them somewhere down the road. So after the match, Hangman Adam Page comes out and he says that Doc Samson won't clear him to wrestle because of his brain, I believe he says. And he gives a right hand to Moxley. And then there's this spot. I don't know if this was intentional or if it was a botch or what happened. But Hangman goes headfirst into the ring post. That looked brutal. Looked really, really brutal. I did not like that spot at all. Especially if he's still suffering from side effects of a concussion. So then we get a quick Stokely Hathaway vignette where he's talking about how an injustice was done to Lee Moriarty. He shows footage of Hook pinning Lee Moriarty, but Lee Moriarty's foot was under the rope. So he hopes that a rematch takes place. We get the Regina D-Wave Championship match. It is a Bunny versus Hikaru Shida. And this is a good match. Jamie Hayter on Dynamite said that whoever won this match would get a championship opportunity against her. So despite Penelope Ford being at ringside and her trying to get involved or intervene in this match, Hikaru Shida picks up the win and Jamie Hayter comes out and she claps. I don't know about you guys, but it seems to me like Jamie Hayter, who watched 90s, who watched X-Men the Animated Series, the 90s version. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, Jamie Hayter looks like 90s Rogue, X-Men the Animated Series version Rogue. Not the movies, not X-Men Evolution, but 90s series Rogue. Wouldn't you agree with me? And especially with that color scheme. I don't know if she did it intentionally. But you know how Rogue has the brown hair and the white? Yeah, it kind of looks like Rogue. At least to me she does. So then we get a tag team match. It's Lee Moriarty and a newly crescent Big Bill versus Clayton Bloodstone and Izzy James. So Big Bill is formerly W. Morrissey, and I have to say, this was a squash match. This, I normally I would say this is all about Lee Moriarty and Big Bill, but I felt like this match was more about Lee Moriarty than it was Big Bill, because this match was pretty much all Lee Moriarty. Big Bill really didn't get a showcase in this match. Yes, he gave a big boot and a choke slam, but those are typical big man moves. We didn't get to see what Big Bill can normally do. Like if you watched his run on Impact Wrestling, you saw what he can do. Now, I'm not digging the name change Big Bill, really? Kind of reminds me of his old name, Big Cass. And there was nothing wrong with the name W. Morrissey. I don't know if this was his idea or if this was AEW's idea. I'm not a huge fan of the name change. If it was his idea, I mean, I'll support it, but I'm just not digging the big name change. I agree with the comparison. I agree with that comparison with Jamie in Classic Row, right? Right? She looks like 90s Rope with that hairdo, with that hairstyle. But Lee Moriarty and Big Bill are victorious. And like I said, I just was not a big fan of this just because I do like W. Morrissey, or as he's now known, Big Bill. And I just feel like he wasn't showcased enough in this match. This match is all about Lee Moriarty. And Big Bill is just a typical big guy in this match. He didn't get to show off what he can really do. But I would like to see more of Big Bill. So we get a quick FTR segment, and they're basically talking about how last year's at Final Battle was the first encounter between the Briscoes and FTR. And if they want to fight, they're going to get a fight. And I actually cannot wait for this rubber match. It's a double dog collar match. Should be a really good match. I'm very curious to see who wins. It's going to either be the Briscoes or maybe FTR would retain. Who knows? I guess it depends on if ROH is going to get a TV deal. So you guys know, before the main event, we get a main event promo. And we get Kip talking about how he would like to take the title from Cassidy, but he isn't cleared to compete after Dustin Rhodes attacked him. But yeah, he said he saw someone with class from across the bond. And let me see, Big Bill sound makes me think of that Schoolhouse Rock. He's just Bill sitting on Capitol Hill. Oh, I forgot about Schoolhouse of Rock. And what the thing I like about this main event promo was Danhausen mocking Mark Henry. He's taking Mark Henry's. He's with Mark Henry. He's like mocking him, like reading his lips. Trent 7 debuted. I wasn't expecting. Me neither. So the main event is the AEW All Atlantic Championship match. It's Orange Cassidy versus the debuting Trent 7. Now, there is a lot of speculation as to who Orange Cassidy's opponent was going to be. I kind of thought it was going to be Miro, especially because I did have an update about Miro from Fightful Select that I read through my Dynamite review. So Trent 7 came as a huge surprise. I was not expecting Trent 7, but Takeshita versus Moxley was a banger. Yes, it was. Definitely. Yes, it was. Great way to open up Rampage. I will say, though, I did find this match pretty entertaining. So I enjoyed this match. I really like the spots where, Orange Cassidy and Trent 7 were doing that whole mustache thing, which I thought was so hilarious. Oh, my God. But that uppercut followed by the twisted pile driver to Orange Cassidy was pretty sick. But, of course, Orange Cassidy retains with an orange punch followed by a breach break. And so at the end of the match, Kip Sabian attacks Orange Cassidy. And you see Penelope Ford grab the referee. He's ringing the bell. And then, Kip Sabian is talking to Trent 7. And then both men attack Orange Cassidy, and then Dustin Rhodes comes out, and he power slams Kip Sabian and Trent 7. And that's pretty much how Rampage goes off the air. I think I know where this is going. A tag team match now, player. Holla. But overall, Rampage was actually, I feel like this Rampage was different. I feel like Tony Khan kind of listened to some of the criticisms of Rampage, because we had an opening match, a segment, opening match, another opening match, to the FTR segment, the main event promo, and the match. So we had 4 matches? So 6 out of 10, decent show. I definitely do agree. This Rampage was a 6 out of 10. I wasn't a huge fan of the Lee Moriarty and Big Bill versus Clayton, Bloodstone, and Izzy James match. I get why they did it. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. But Yeah, this Rampage certainly felt different compared to the other Rampage. But with that being said, that concludes the Rampage review. So let's move on and talk about everyone's favorite Friday night show, Friday Night Smackdown. So Friday Night Smackdown kicked off with the undisputed WWE tag team match. It's the Usos versus the Brawling Brutes in the form of Sheamus and Butch. This was apparently supposed to be Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, but Drew McIntyre was medically unable to compete in this match. So I have to say, this is a really good match. Actually, SmackDown I missed a whole lot. Fell asleep because of being sick. I flew. Oh, I hope you feel better. So one of the spots I liked about this was that clothesline to Jimmy by Sheamus. Jimmy attempted a hip toss, but he couldn't nail it, and then Sheamus followed it up with the rolling senton. That white noise from the second rope to Jimmy by Sheamus was pretty cool. And of course, Sami Zayn had to get involved in this. He caused a distraction. Another spot that I liked about this was the Razor's Edge, which Sheamus did to Jimmy, and then it was a neckbreaker combo. So Butch did the neckbreaker to Jimmy. But of course, the Usos retain. It's a 1D with 2 Butch. So like I said, it's a good match. I didn't mind it. It was predictable. The Usos were going to retain this. I don't think the Usos are losing those tag titles until WrestleMania. So the only thing that I just kind of dislike about this was, like, from here on out, like, the Usos matches are going to be predictable. But hey, I've said before, I don't mind predictability as long as it's a good match. And this one was no exception. It was a good match. So I'm okay with it. They were in Philadelphia. They were in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my bad. I got confused for a second there. And this was Kurt Angle's hometown. Let me see. It was a fun show, but obviously Usos were winning, yeah. So I didn't review Dynamite in both shows. Oh, okay. Understandable. Having the flu. So we get Kurt Angle with Gable Steveson backstage, and Braun Strowman introduces himself to Gable Steveson. And Gable says that when he wants those hands, Braun Strowman will be the first one he seeks out. So it's interesting that they're kind of pairing them up. So, which I guess wouldn't be such a bad idea for Gabe Stevenson. So then after that, we get an LA Knight promo. And he basically starts talking about how it's obvious he struck a nerve in Bray Wyatt, and maybe even Bray Wyatt fears him. He says week after week he gets blinded. And then Bray says he didn't do it. And LA Knight is basically calling Bray's bluff. He says that every single time he gets attacked, there he is. And he shows footage. And yeah, and if you look closely at that footage, you can see those different masks that Bray Wyatt has. And then, like, he appears on the Titantron. It's like that Uncle Howdy. And he kind of says, what are you waiting for? Don't you want your respect? And he ends it with, the door is closing. And LA Knight basically uses this, and he says, you need any more evidence? And then he goes to the back, and he looks for Bray Wyatt. So later on in the night, you see him walking by himself, and he enters the locker room. The lights go out. Smart of him to use his cell phone to turn on the light. And then there's a masked figure there. So I don't know about you, but any horror movie knows that you're not supposed to wander off by yourself. So LA Knight made a big mistake wandering off by himself. It's no surprise he got attacked. Rule number 1, you don't ever go anywhere by yourself. So we get a backstage segment. Well, actually, I should say a parking lot segment. It starts off with Legado del Fantasma. But then it cuts to Ronda and Shayna beating up Shotzi, or at least they claim that they didn't beat her up. And so this leads into a Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler segment. And they say that Shotzi was crying like she does every week. They call her fragile. And then out of nowhere, Tegan Knox and Liv Morgan show up. And Liv Morgan and Shayna says that Shayna and Ronda have beaten everyone except them. And if you mess with the bull, you get the horn. So it's kind of random that they randomly paired up Liv Morgan and Tegan Knox. Honestly, totally random, totally out of the blue, if you ask me. And like, what happened with Liv? I feel like they don't know what to do with her. Like, she went from being women's champion to potentially going like joining the dark side with this whole Sonya Deville stuff. Now she's back to teaming up in a tag team, like with this time with Tegan Knox. I don't know what's going on here with Liv Morgan. I feel like they don't know what to do with her. So then we're supposed to get a tag team match, Legado del Fantasma, Cruz del Toro, and Joaquín Wilde versus the Viking Raiders. But this match really doesn't go anywhere because Hit Row comes out. First, Beef Fat comes out and with the chair and she watches the match. Then Top Dollar and Ashantis come out with steel chairs and they start attacking people. But Hala gets taken out by BFAB and they crash into Zelina. And then Wild gets power slammed by Top Dollar. So we're going to get ourselves a triple threat tag team match next week because of this. And I feel like with all of this, it seems to me like Triple H doesn't know what team he wants to go over. Does he want Hit Row? Does he want Legado del Fantasma? Does he want the Viking Raiders? I feel like Legado del Fantasma and the Viking Raiders need to be protected. I mean, the Viking Raiders, it just felt so bad for them. And I feel like they've been put on the back burner. I mean, after that Viking Rules match, which was a good match, by the way, you would have thought that they would have catapulted them to a tag team title match, but no. I feel like the tag team division is going to stay stagnant until you get those tag titles off the Usos, because from here on out until at least until WrestleMania, it doesn't matter who faces the Usos, they're not taking those tag titles off of the Usos until WrestleMania. Hit Row starting to be boring. Yeah, they're not the same since without a Swerve Strickland, that's for sure. So after that, this is actually when we get that LA Knight segment where he's wandering off by himself. But I already talked about that to follow it up with the other LA Knight promo. So we get a contract signing. It's Ricochet and Gunther. And before I talk about this segment in its entirety, I just want to start off by saying I really love the fact that the New Day came out in their Tommy attire. Xavier Woods was the White Ranger. Kofi Kingston was the Green Ranger. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did get a little emotional seeing this. I'm wearing my Dragon Surge shirt. It hasn't even been a month since JDF passed away, and it was just really just got a little emotional seeing them wear that attire. I know that they had paid tribute to JDF at a house show in Portland with that attire, and I'm really glad that we finally got to see it on SmackDown. Who would add icing to the cake would have been if they would have just came out with like a dragon dagger and Saba, but I thought that was a really sweet tribute. It really was. It warmed my heart. Anywho, So this contract signing, as you guys know, contracts and signings in wrestling never end well. And this was no exception. So the reason why the New Day came out and they start talking about how they know how this is going to go. They said that Gunther's going to get mad and he's going to attack Ricochet. And the funny part is that Adam Pearce was like, how do you guys know this is going to happen? And Xavier Woods like, do you not watch professional wrestling? Which is like, that was so hilarious. And Gunther actually says that the difference between him and Ricochet is that they're professional wrestlers. They're not performers. And I don't know about you guys, but this kind of felt like maybe like a jab at Chris Jericho and his whole Jericho Appreciation Society, because they're always saying that they're sports entertainers instead of pro wrestlers. Or I feel like this was Gunther's way of saying that they're professional wrestlers, not sports entertainers. But maybe he couldn't use that or didn't want to use that for it to be compared to the JASA. So that's why he said performers instead of sports entertainers. But of course, things end up getting out of control. And this leads into a 6-man tag team match player. It's the New Day and Ricochet versus Imperium. And I actually didn't mind this match. I actually enjoyed it. I have to say, Ricochet got the pin. I know why he got the pin. He needs momentum going into next week for that IC title match. So he won the match for his team, the New Day and Rico, for his match. I kind of wish one of the New Day would have gotten the pin here. Maybe Xavier Woods or Kofi Kingston, just because like they were wearing their Tommy inspired attires, and it would have just been great for one of them to get the pin. I understand why Ricochet got the pin, because he needs that momentum. With John Cena returning on the last SmackDown, I think they are setting up for Cena versus Gunther. That would be awesome. I didn't even think about that. John Cena versus Gunther would actually be awesome, because it's pretty obvious Ricochet is not winning that match. And I honestly would not mind seeing John Cena versus Gunther. John Cena has yet to win the Intercontinental title, but I kind of want to see Sheamus versus Gunther one more time. You have Sheamus versus Gunther 3 at WrestleMania, and you give Sheamus his WrestleMania moment. At least that's what. But hey, John Cena versus Gunther is actually a pretty good choice too. So then we get a quick backstage segment with Sami Zayn and the Usos, and they're talking about how they're feeling oozy. Are you guys feeling oozy? And that they're going to go get food. And as Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso leave, Jay grabs Sami and he tells him that Roman is coming next week. And he tells him to trim his hair and beard because it's going to be a big night for Sami. So I'm very curious to see what that means. Are they finally going to turn on Sami? Are they going to... what else can they do to Sami? I mean, it says there's a big night for Sami, so I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. But when that betrayal eventually happens, it's going to hurt, because Sami Zayn is so invested in this, and he just plays his storyline so well. But I'm very curious to see what that segment's going to be about. So then we get Rey Mysterio and Karrion Kross backstage, and Kross basically comes to Rey and tells him about, and he says he wanted to see him, especially after his predicament. He starts talking about how Scarlett is from Romania, and he tells him the story about a horse. And he says that it's always sad when he had to put an animal out of its misery. He's basically saying he's going to put Rey Mysterio out of his misery. He's basically called Rey Mysterio an animal. So poor Rey Mysterio can't catch a break. Seriously, he can't. Poor Rey Mysterio. So then we get Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. This match was okay. The only thing I liked about this was Ronda Rousey mocking Liv Morgan. Like, she mocked her. She even had the blue tongue and everything. Raquel Rodriguez comes on. She causes a distraction. And Tegan Nox hits a Shining Wizard to Shayna Baszler, allowing Tegan Nox and Liv Morgan to be victorious. And we found out that next week they're going to get an opportunity to challenge for those women's tag titles. As I said before, those tag titles are just basically props at this point. They haven't been defended. And next week's the first time in a while, I think since Crown Jewel? Since November? That they're getting defended. So it's been a month since their last title defense, I think. And I don't know. I'm going to feel some type of way if Damage Control loses. Really. I am going to feel some type of way, because it's kind of like, really, they're barely defending the titles, and this is their first title defense in a while, and they're going to lose. So I feel like Damage Control needs to win. Always, they need to change their name from Damage Control to Damageless Control. So that technically was the main event, because what ended up closing SmackDown was a Kurt Angle birthday celebration. So there's this cake and everything in the ring. And you guys know birthdays also do not end well in wrestling. So you have Kurt Angle come out, and he thanks Pittsburgh. Of course, he gets interrupted by Alpha Academy, and Chad Gable says that every clown in Pittsburgh gets an invite to Kurt's party, but they don't. And he says that the reason why was because Kurt was being afraid of getting upstaged by a real Olympian hero, and that Kurt's just being petty, and pettiness sucks. And Chad Gable says that he agrees Kurt does suck. You guys know how they chant that you suck. And I actually like that Gable said this. He says that Kurt Angle has no integrity, has lost his intensity, and has no intelligence, mocking, the three eyes that appear in Kurt Angle's Titantron. And he said that Kurt Angle's going to leave with another broken freaking neck. So as Kurt Angle's leaving, and you see Gabe Stevenson come out in a milk truck in a milk truck. And like Chad Gable is eating Kurt Angle's gold medal. And like at first I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like you see Gable, Stevenson, and Kurt Angle throwing milk bottles at Alpha Academy. And I was kind of like, that's it? Like that's all that's gonna happen? Freaking Kurt Angle pulls out a hose and freaking gives Alpha Academy a milk bath. Oh my god, that was so hilarious. Very that was I honestly I laughed so much with that. It was really I enjoyed that. Oh my god. It kind of reminds me of when Kurt Angle used the milk truck to soak the Alliance way back in the day. That was hilarious. It was very reminiscent of that. And my freaking Michael Cole with his puns of legendary, get it, dairy, because it's dairy, milk is dairy. Oh my god. So overall tonight's SmackDown, you know what? I'm gonna have to also give this a 6 out of 10. Aside from the main event and from the Kurt Angle segment and from the 6-man tag match, I didn't really care for the women's tag match when that tag team match was, ended in no contest. So a 6 out of 10 as well for SmackDown. But with that being said, you guys, thank you guys all so much for watching and for the continuous support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever I go live or release a new video. And I'm not going to be doing a review of Final Battle. I'm not sure if I'm even going to watch Final Battle. I want to, but we'll see. I thought the end with Kurt Angle was fun, but we already seen this in 2001 with the milk truck, which was a lot better. So I don't think I'm gonna be doing a review for Final Battle. So with that being said, you guys, I'll see you guys Monday, hopefully live after Raw. Bye.